Greetings, Commanders. It's Commander Atlas Ran, and today I've got a short video for you with more colonization tips and tricks. Well, I'm not even sure we can call them tips and tricks at this point, because really it's just observations and complaints. That's probably the biggest factors here. Anyway, well, let's start off with something that became apparent this week, which was not the case last week, and we know this because of the people in Galt, that is the group that is building all in one area here. That's my group. We've been doing a lot of research and also talking with Meccan and other people that are researching on the FDev's own site. And so there's been a lot of information being thrown back and forth. Everybody's seeing things. Unfortunately, not everybody's seeing the exact same thing. But one of the things I think everybody has seen is that starting after the last update, the Thursday tick, it appears that any newly constructed stations or even small outposts like T1s, they now inherit an economy from the planet that they're built around. Now, this was not the case in the past. In the past, if you built an outpost above a planet and there was nothing else on the planet, well, that outpost just sort of stayed at whatever you built for an economy. And if you built a colonization outpost, then it had basically no economy, and you were free to decide what type of economy you'd like on that outpost or that station by building a particular set of buildings on the surface. So effectively, the planetary surface was what was dictating the thing that the station would end up having as its economy. And to a station, an economy is essentially the things that it sells and the things that it buys and what kind of prices it's going to pay or charge for those things. Obviously, with colonization, there's been a huge demand for metal, a huge demand for CMM, huge demand for a few things, and then a small demand for others, like, for example, fruits and vegetables, food cartridges. Like, they're needed, but all in small quantities. So people typically want to control what type of economy a station has so that they themselves can buy from that station. And one of the things we decided to do in our little Atlas bubble, as we've been calling it, is to sort of determine that different people have slightly different economies, to see how they interact with each other from a background simulation perspective. It also gives people an opportunity to buy different goods in different systems just for building their own stations. We're not quite, but we're almost self-sufficient, but it's pretty close. So this new change, which effectively places the planet that the station is built on as the initial main determining factor of the type of economy that station has, I think is actually good in the long run, but it's bad in the short run. It's bad because many of us, myself included, started building stations, in my case, a T3, the most expensive in terms of goods station, based on the previous knowledge that we had, because I started this build a month ago. Now you're seeing it on the screen. You're seeing that system. Essentially, that T3 station was the first station in the system. It was built as a original station, the first one to be put in. And the reason it was put in there was because it was on a planet with 5 empty slots, which means I could push the economy of that T3 station into anything I wanted. And what I wanted to push it in, of course, was out of all the different economies, would be a refinery. And a refinery would allow this station to sell most of the metals that we use in construction of other things. And that would be great. However, since I missed the deadline for Thursday's tick to complete the station, I had about 5% left, just could not do it before the server shut down. Consequently, then, the station was completed on Thursday after the tick. And so it was finished a few hours after the new rules had kicked in. And surprise, surprise, instead of having no economy whatsoever, it had two economies. And this was something that I don't think I was prepared for. It had a 1.15 economy of industry, and it had a 1.0 agriculture economy. Now, remember, this is the first station in the system. There's literally nothing else built. Nothing can be affecting this station and what it produces other than the planet itself. At least that's the theory. And I'm going to say the theory multiple times during this video because let's face it, guys, all the data that we're all collecting, a lot of the data that Mechan is putting out in daily videos, it's all theory. It is based on observations that we have without knowing what's going on. If you think of the game company as basically playing God, and we are playing primitive tribes on Earth, and we're seeing a lightning strike hit, and we're like, aha, that's because we did something bad. Clearly, we have to sacrifice a virgin or something in order to avoid future lightning strikes. That's kind of like what we're doing right now, guys. We are playing a game where we don't know the rules, and we're not even sure they know the rules. I think they keep changing the rules somewhat arbitrarily. Now, it just so happens I like this latest rule change for players moving forward. And if you avoided playing colonization aspects of the game for the first month, you're actually in a better position than many of us because we have now multiple systems which were built before the rules changed that just did not quite turn out well. So effectively for now, what I would say is until something changes, look for systems to build that have the types of planets that will create an economy that you want. Now, this is good because it simplifies the economy process. No longer do you have to put a bunch of buildings on the planet's surface to guide the economy to something you want. You just have to pick the right planet. So what are these types of economies? Well, the three easy ones are that the icy planets, like the one that I built on, will give you industrial. That will be the main economy they generate. In my case, it also gave me a secondary economy of agriculture. And we're still trying to understand exactly why. And it seems like maybe the atmosphere of the planet has something to do with it. And it's a thin argon atmosphere on this particular planet. But it may also not have anything to do with it. We don't know yet. But for sure, planets that are icy tend to give you industrial economies. Planets that are rocky give you refinery economies. Now, for a lot of players, this is the one you actually want. This is the one that is the most desired because it allows you to get materials locally to build more stations instead of having to, fly all the way back to the bubble to buy them from existing in-bubble stations. So if you want to have an economy that produces all the metals that are used in building, aluminum, steel, copper, titanium, all that stuff, that would be a refinery economy. And that by default happens when you build on a rocky planet, or above a rocky planet, I should say. Now, what used to be the most desired, because people thought the high metal content worlds were what would give you all the metals. Well, that actually gives you an extraction economy. And that kind of makes sense logically, right? Because it doesn't really matter where you refine, it matters where you harvest ore. Now, usually refineries in the real world are built fairly close to where the ore is harvested, but they don't necessarily have to be close, and they certainly don't have to be on the exact same part of the globe. So, like for example, you have iron mines in Minnesota, up north in northern Minnesota, where Bob Dylan's from. For anybody that's that age, you probably remember this. But it's not to say that the refining takes place in Minnesota, because they will ship that bauxite from the they used to anyway. I don't know if they still do, but they will ship that ore to refineries that are in other states closer to where actual steel production is happening. And that might be in Pennsylvania, might be in Chicago, might be somewhere else. Same concept here. So you're extracting from high metal worlds. That economy gives you all the other metals as well. Gold, silver, platinum, all that stuff would be on that world. But that's not where it's refined. It's refined on the rocky worlds, and then it's utilized on icy planets because they provide the industry. And that's kind of the path. You extract, you refine, and then it's used for industry. And industry generates a lot of the smaller items that are used in construction as well. So all three of those are actually pretty good. You just have to now make sure that a solar system that you grab, or I know people will talk about, oh, it's not really a solar system. There's no sol there. That's true. A system, a sun and planetary system, a star and planetary system. I just cracked myself up. That will have an impact on what you can build and what it's going to produce. So keep that in mind. Mechan's got a video with graphics. I'm just showing you the quick and dirty of this. But essentially, you're going to build industrial ice planets. You're going to build a refinery on rocky planets. You're going to build extraction on high metal worlds. Now, question comes up. Can you either enhance those or fight them and change what you're producing? The answer is yes. Indeed, you can. And there is some benefit to doing so, especially if you're going to build a tier 3 station. If you build a tier 3 station, it can potentially support 3 economies. However, you're going to get the best bang for the buck if all 3 of those are exactly the same. And so you're going to be increasing the volume of the materials that it produces. Now, if you want to have 2 different economies, that's fine too. Just keep in mind that the volume of material is going to be a little bit lower. But if you do build, for example, on a rocky planet where you have a refinery, there's also a benefit to building refineries on the surface of that planet, refinery hubs, which is the only building that actually adds to a refinery economy. And that way, you should increase the amounts being produced and available to purchase in your station. Likewise, if you have a planet that you don't like what it's producing, like let's say you have a planet that is a extraction planet, you don't really care about gold and platinum, you'd rather have titanium and steel available to purchase. You can also place multiple refinery hubs on that planet and essentially brute force the economy to change from what the planet's natural economy was to one that you select. In the past, you would have had to do this anyway, just to establish an economy. Here, you're having to do it only if you want to change the economy. Unfortunately, it also means because you're not going from nothing to something, you're going from something to something. It also means that you're going to be having to build more than you would have otherwise to achieve the same economic breakdown. And it is also easier to change the economies on smaller stations because they max out at a smaller total economy. So like a total economy on a small station is, I believe it's a 1.6 or 1.4. And it's 2.4 on the tier 2s, and it's 3.4 or 3.6, whatever it is, on the tier 3s. So essentially, you're going to have to build that many more buildings, for lack of a better term, that focus on a particular economy than you would otherwise. The other thing to keep in mind is somewhat similar to what naturally seemed to happen on my planet that has the tier 3 on it, is if you combine economies that don't really use each other's goods, then all the goods should be available. So an agricultural economy combined with, let's say, an extraction economy works well because there's nothing that's going to be used from the extraction by the agricultural economy. And that means that both economies will be selling off their products. And you can see this in the station. If you go to it, you look at what it consumes, like what are they buying, and what it produces, what are they selling. And if you can see that the things that it's consuming, that station, and you could do this on a current existing station in the bubble, or even one that you've previously built, you can see what that station is consuming for materials, and then know that if you add that type of economy to the next planet that you want to build a similar station on, then that item will not be available for sale. An example of that is a refinery economy with an industrial economy. Industrial economies use a lot of the metals that are produced by refineries. And if the industrial economy is combined in the same station as an existing refinery economy, then a chunk of metals will not be available on that station, because effectively they are internally utilized. Or another way to think of it is the station is both selling and buying that metal, and so you're never getting to do that because the NPCs are doing that. So if you're going to be combining economies, it's always better to combine totally separate economies that don't really buy things from one another. And I will say there is a couple of things that I think the agriculture economy does actually buy from industrial. I think it's literally 2 products that it buys, but all the rest of them, it doesn't. So, a better example is like tourism. Tourism and refinery, or tourism and extraction, or even for the most part, tourism with industrial, although the first 2 are better, would be a good mix because they don't compete for resources. What one produces isn't used by the other one, and therefore it's fully available for sale. Now, there are a couple of special situations here. I talked about the main 3, which is ice, rocky, and high metal. There is also there's also a special condition for Earth-like worlds and water worlds. And from what I've seen, and this is based on literally reading 2 or 3 people reporting it, so don't take this as universally true as the other ones that I just talked about, which, like, at this point, probably 50 or 60 people have reported the same information. But for the Earth-like worlds, they get tourism automatically. They get high tech, which is a high tech economy, just has some unique items that other economies don't produce, and it gets agricultural. Those 3. So, give it a little bit of a salt with that, I guess, or take it with a grain of salt, as the saying goes. If that's going to be confirmed in this coming week by more than just a couple of people, if we're going to have a larger confirmation group, then that'll be great. One of the guys in our group is currently going to be working on an Earth-like planet and doing that test himself to see what station generates if it's built over that planet before anything else is built in the system. So we'll have those results for you as well. And by the way, guys, join our Discord. So a lot of this conversation is happening publicly on our Discord. A lot of people are popping in. Mechan's popping in there as well. Ricardo from Ricardo's Gaming's popping in. Vortex is coming in from his channel. A lot of streamers and YouTubers stop by, both to chat about this stuff, about what's going on in the game, and just to be general pains in my butt, because streamers seem to enjoy giving other streamers shit. So it is what it is. But it's open for everybody. The only channels that you can't get into as a regular member are ones that are specifically for our squadron, where we're talking about future plans for colonization, that kind of private stuff. But everything else, all the research on planets, etc., it's all out there in the public. So feel free to check it out. Now, some of the other things that also I've read on the forums, that building stations next to suns will now create a military economy on those stations. I have not done, I've built, unfortunately, I have a T3 station that's half built that is sitting on a sun. Now, I'm not going to finish it this week. I'd tell you that right now. It's about 35% done. So it probably still needs like 12 carriers or 13 carriers worth of materials to finish it. But when that's finished, that will give us another good indicator or more data into what happens when you finish a station around the sun. Previous to now, stations built around suns produced nothing good. They basically produced biowaste and a few other materials, and that was it. They were a waste of the materials that you'd spent to build them. Right now, a few reports of command of people doing that and finishing them, and they're saying they have a military economy. That's interesting. If true, then when I finish my T3 around the sun, that system should have a very strong military economy because that's a big ass station. What else have we got? Gas giants. So stations built around planets that are gas giants, which again previously never had an economy and no way for you to introduce an economy. Right now, it appears that they're getting that. Again, this is just based on a few reports, guys, so that could change depending on what more people report. But stations built around gas giants seem to have an agricultural economy. So I don't know. We'll see what that turns into. Maybe somebody is onto something, and we're going to see more of that, or maybe they have an unusual system, and maybe their previous build affected something in the system. And this is the big question mark that I don't think anybody really knows, regardless of what people say. And that is, what does the overall system contribute? So we're talking about previously nothing contributing to a station economy until you start building on the planet's surface. Now we have evidence that the planets themselves, with nothing on them, contribute to affecting a station's economy. What we don't know is the system as a whole affecting the economy? Meaning, if it's the first thing you build in the system, like that T3 that I built, there was nothing else built in the system, there can't be anything else affecting that economy because nothing else that we've built in the system. However, we haven't built anything, but there are another dozen planets in that system. And maybe it's the combination of all those planets that somehow has provided my station with agriculture rather than the planet that it's circling. We don't know. Same way that, we might be seeing different things popping up around gas giants as an economy, not because of the gas giant, but because of other planets in the system as well. These are all questions that hopefully will get answered in the coming weeks. We really just don't know yet what we're going to do there. Next thing, before I forget, if you have not watched my video on the new tool that helps to automate deliveries of materials, go back and watch it right now. Stop this video. Go back and watch that video. It's the one released right before this one. It is a new tool. It's actually not a new tool. It's a tool that's been around for a long time, but it's a new feature in an old tool. I've been talking to the developer every day about what can be tweaked, what can be improved. We're finding bugs. We're helping him as much as we can in our squadron to get this thing to be polished up. I'm finding that it is an awesome tool. It's something that we've been using in the squadron. It's allowing me to look at all the carriers of all the members on the squadron that are using the tool and see exactly who has what materials on their carrier. It's allowing me to be able to make place a new station. You do have to enter the information once manually about what that station needs, because remember, everything you build has a slight randomness of material, and that number can go up, it could go down, but typically what I found is it goes slightly up compared to the what the original estimates were for how much material we need, which were around 19,000 for a small outpost. Most of my newer outposts are coming in between 21 and 23,000, but still, that's 2,000 variants right there. So we have that. Use the tool for sure. Other things that we found, when you are loading your carrier from a station assuming that you've got the funds, and I'm going to guess you do if you're building with a carrier, but assuming you got the funds to have more than one hauling ship, and specifically either more than one T9 or more than one cutter, there is a legitimate, but some people may consider it not to be super legitimate, way to speed up loading your carrier. And the way to do that is to utilize something that all carriers have, which are emergency life pods, or emergency, what are they called? The escape pods, emergency escape pods. That's what they are. So when you walk up to emergency escape pods on the way to your carrier's command deck, you always walk past them. Most people don't notice them, but they're there standing vertically next to a wall. But if you walk right up to it, you can hit the letter, I think it's E or whatever command you have it set up for. And it says, would you like to use the escape pod? Most people have not done this for a simple reason. There's no reason to do it, and therefore they haven't done it. It also warns you that you will lose any biological data if you do this. The purpose of this, I believe, and again, I could be wrong, but I believe the purpose of these pods is that if your carrier is somewhere far away, you're in the black, and your carrier runs out of fuel, and you have no way to refill it. Now you're basically stuck out somewhere in the black, and unless you brought a ship that was capable of you flying back on that ship to wherever stations are, you're just SOL. You're stuck on that carrier. And so they created this escape pod system, which effectively, when you use it, saves you by, I don't know if you want to call it teleporting, but essentially, let's just say it launches your escape pod in the direction of a station, and then some days later, after arriving at the station, you're woken up from stasis. That's a nice way of putting you teleport to a station. So when you use the escape pod, you effectively go to the last station where you landed previously. Okay? So how does this help you? How is this a tip or trick? Well, let's say you are loading your carrier from a planetary station, or it doesn't matter if it's orbital or planetary. Either one works fine. But let's say it's a planetary because they're harder to get to. It takes longer. So you go down, you fly down to your planetary station on your cutter. You land, you load the ship up as you normally do, but you also get off the ship and you walk up to a terminal down there to bring your second cutter down. And you know how you can move ships by just paying a small fee? Well, it's coming from your carrier, which is sitting really close to the planet that you went down on. So the fee is going to be minimal, and the time will be 5 minutes. I believe 5 minutes is the minimal amount of time. And so you essentially start getting the second ship going to be shipped to the station. You get back in your ship as normal. The one that's loaded up with cargo, you fly back to your carrier as normal. You unload that cargo in your carrier. Make sure that that you empty your ship before you do anything else. And then after you've emptied your ship, you get off your ship into first-person mode. You disembark, and then you walk through your carrier to your command bridge. And right before you reach your command bridge, you will see the escape pods. You walk up to the escape pod, you hit the button. I believe it's E by default. It gives you the little warning. You say okay, and then poof, you are now back at the station on the ground. And there's a ship waiting for you because you recall that ship before leaving. And so the first thing you do after you pop up in that station is you walk back up to the ship terminal. You now call down your second ship that's currently on the carrier. That's the one you flew back on that was full. You recall that one to come back to the ground station. It'll take 5 minutes. You walk out. You get into your ship that's sitting and waiting there. It's empty, so you buy whatever cargo you need to buy. You fly out of there. You fly back to your carrier. You land on your carrier. You empty the cargo. You get out. You disembark. You walk to your command bridge. Before you get there, you get to the escape pods. You hit the button. You hit OK, and poof, you're back at the station. Now, is this sound repetitive and familiar? because what you're doing is you're basically flying each ship one way. You're saving half your journey by using two different ships, one of them always being brought to the station by you paying for it. And so the only trip you're making is the trip from the station to your carrier. Now, hopefully you understand how this works. The question is, do you want to use it or not? I personally have used it twice. I don't use it regularly. Other guys I know have been using it every single time for the last 4 weeks because it saves them an enormous amount of time of not having to fly an empty ship to a station just to load it up there and fly back. Is this legit, or is this like using a bad mechanic of the game? I think it is actually legit because escape pods are named escape pods. They do exactly that function by design. Like there's no hacking going on here. This is the way the game was written, is to actually use the escape pod to transport you. Although again, I would say the more role play version of that is to have you sleep in stasis in your escape pod until you get picked up and brought to the station, and then you wake up. But the idea is the same. You're essentially being transported back to the station, and you're able to now take a ship on just a one-way flight instead of having to do round trips. So if you haven't done it, and if you don't think it's too cheaty, then do it. Frankly, think of it this way. It's way less cheaty than what all of us were encouraged to do before the recent changes when gathering materials, which is to log out of the game, log back into the game, get your materials, log out of the game, log back into the game. So any tutorials you may have seen that include the words log out are more cheaty than using this particular method. However, I still choose to mostly not use it because to me it is a little game breaking, because really everything else in the game doesn't use any kind of a magic hand. It's everything takes time. Everything else is more or less explainable by science. This method is a stretch for me personally, so I tend not to do it, but it's totally legit if you want to do it. So there's another tip for you. All right, and then the last bits are, I guess they're bits of data, tips, whatever you want to call them. They're just quick hit, small little things. So things like always make sure you build a station or outpost first, and then you build any on-planet buildings below that, because if you don't, your planetary buildings may not reflect or may not transfer their economic pushes to the station. I've experienced this myself because when I started playing the game week 1, the first thing I did is, after building my first station, is I instantly proceeded to start building on planets because I thought it was cooler. Like it was just a more interesting thing to see actual land-based outposts that I can land on and walk around, and anyway, role play type stuff, right? So I built those. Then I built a station above them, and the station above them did not reflect the economy that it should have if those were actually making a difference. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, now that we actually have the planet themselves pushing an economy, that may not be quite as much of an issue, but it certainly is an issue if you're trying to manually tweak an economy to something you want. So you always want to build those after the outposts they're flying around. Next thing is, when you're looking at new systems to colonize, when you're looking at maps, originally the biggest thing I was looking for is, does it have rings? Because I want to go mining. That's the thing I cared about the most, was finding systems with a lot of gas giants with rings. They look cool, and I want to mine. I enjoy mining. And so, yeah, if you're doing that, that's great. However, keep in mind that if you want to have stations that can buy that mine material from you, you got to have a pretty good economy. And putting, at least for now, putting stations around gas giants, which makes sense to me. That's where I put 2 out of 3 of a large stations that I built were right around gas giants because that's where I was mining. The problem is they never got any economies. So they didn't buy the material that I was mining because they don't have an economy worth buying anything, which was not good. So even if you're going to be building something to buy the material from what you're mining in your own system, you're probably going to want to put that station on a different planet than the gas giant that you're going to be mining on. And that kind of touches another object. And this is something that I have not noticed, or not really. And maybe I just haven't noticed it, but I know Meccan had mentioned this previously, that you always want to use slot 0 for space stations because that's the only one that actually gets affected. Slot 0 is the one that would be the closest to the planet. Here's the problem, and this is something I have experienced. I have put a station in slot 0, built it, completed it, and then added a couple of, satellites or orbital arrays or something, just non-landable structures also in the outer slots on that planet. And guess what happened? As soon as those were done, or well, not both at the same time, but as soon as one of them was done, it popped up ahead of the station that I built. So does that mean my station is no longer in slot 0 because it got mushed back? I don't know. I can't tell. I have no idea if that's the case because, I've built it around the gas giant, which didn't give me any kind of a economy. And so the station's not buying anything because it's around the gas giant, and it may no longer be in slot 0 because these other installations jumped in front of it. So who knows? So if you're going to build a station that you want to make sure is interacting with the planet, don't build anything else. That's the tip. Just put one station per planet. Nothing else in space. You can add other things on the ground. Just don't build in space. Next thing, and this is probably a very time-sensitive thing, so this hopefully will get fixed. And if you're seeing this video within the first week after I make it, then it's going to be true. Later, who knows if it's going to be true. But right now, ground-based stations or ground-based installations are kind of broken. They don't actually generate any economy. So, the things that you should be able to buy from them, you're actually not able to buy from them. And that's hopefully just a temporary short-term problem, but just be aware of it. And so the general advice is don't build any human-populated outposts on the surface. Nothing that has a landing pad. You can build hubs which don't have landing pads. Those still work. You can build those on surface. Just leave room to later, once they fix it, to build the outposts and things. Or, there's 2 types of planetary surface outposts. There's the Odyssey ones, and then there's the Horizons ones. But neither one of them apparently right now is working correctly. So once fixed, you go back and fill those spots in. For now, don't build them. What else? So you should also keep each planet in one type of production cycle. So if you have, this is even true before the planets themselves started providing the type of economy that you have on a station. But generally, you're going to be better served by having a single economy with some reinforcing buildings on the planet for that one economy than you are by splitting it and having 2 different economies, each representing 50% of what's in the station. So kind of specialize each planet. Now, here's something we don't know, and that is, should you specialize each system? And I've heard a few people arguing for that and saying, look, in this system, the only things I'm building are always going to be refineries and nothing else. I want that economy for every planet in the system, and that way nothing's competing with it. Other people will say, well, this planet is for refining, this planet is for extraction, this other planet's for industry, and this one's for agriculture. Right now, we have too little data. I can't give you advice on which of those 2 methods to follow, but I can tell you this. One of them is a safer one. If you only build one type of industry per system, then wait to see what happens and what everybody else says. And then you might be able to go back to that system and then build a second or a third industry in there once we have confirmation everything's working fine. And if it doesn't ever work fine, well, great. Now you've got a system that only produces the one thing it's good at producing. And so don't screw with it. Leave it alone. It's not like it's hard to find other systems to add besides just the one you're in as well. So that's another bit of advice is, I guess, for the time being, maybe just do specialization of systems, not just planets. That might actually work better for you. And then the last thing is when you're picking the new systems, knowing what we know today, I would look, and I am looking for systems that preferably have no more than 2 suns, because I don't want to fly very far. I want to be able to have the furthest planet be no more than about 3,000 light seconds. I want to have at least a total of 10 planets in that system. If it's 5 per sun, that's fine. If it's 10 or more per sun, even better. And I want to make sure that there is at least 1 planet per sun of rocky type. Because right now I have a couple of systems that are beautiful systems, not a single rocky one. It's all either metal or ice and no rocky at all. And so I can't get that free automatic economy that's going to give me the materials, the raw metal materials to build all the different stuff I want to build in that system. So make sure that whatever system you look for has at least 1 per sun of a rocky planets. Or, it could be like 3 or 4 rocky planets on one sun and then other types of planets on the other sun. That's fine too. But just have more than 1 rocky planet, because you're going to want to use that to just extract the metals so you can have them locally instead of having to bring them in from the bubble. So with that in mind, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm already over the half-hour mark, which is what I was shooting for, is to be at about half an hour. I am traveling this coming week. Those of you hearing this more than a week from the release of the video, you don't care. Those of you that don't watch my live streams, you don't care. I get it. But for people that are watching this video and do watch my live streams and are going to be wondering why the hell I haven't come out with more videos and or live streams for a whole week, there's your answer. But to get the answer, you have to listen to the very end of the video, which I know statistically only 12% of you do. Everybody else stops watching before this point. So consider yourself the lucky ones that actually now have heard why I'm not going to be generating some more stuff. But I will catch you on the next one, guys. I hope you enjoyed this brief summary. Hope you enjoyed maybe even watching a little bit of my building a variety of things as my background video. This is mostly just me talking over the top of an existing video playing. It's more like a podcast on top of a pre-recorded video. But I'll tell you what, that scene we're looking at right now with the atmosphere and the sunrise is just gorgeous. I really like that planet. It turned out really good. It's an icy world. That's the one I have a T3 above with the dual economies. And it's turned out beautiful. All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next one.